Now we have allocated to each department, and now we have the service departments allocated to the production department, or we have the percentage. Now, since 50% of marketing went over to molding and the other 50% of marketing went to finishing, I have half of 5850 going to molding, half of 5850 going to finishing. So that's split half and half. You see the total still matches the total of marketing. I just allocated to production. Now the marketing department, it looks like the finishing department is using 2/3 of marketing and the molding department is using only 1/3 of marketing. So I do have 8250 that I allocated total, but 1/3 went over to molding and 2/3 went over to finishing. It's just allocating the service over to the production. Now in the first phase we had an allocation of 24,750. I'll show you where it is. We had this right here, which was just the molding department, how much it drew to begin with. And then the finishing department drew 27,150 in cost. These are just the cost that we already allocated to begin with. But now I'm showing you, okay, now we have design department cost, marketing department cost, first phase allocation, which was just direct and overhead cost. So we can see that 30,425 is how much molding is used up, including the services. And you see here that finishing acquired 35,575 in cost. Now look at the total. The total of 66, we originally had 66,000. We still are with the 66,000, which means we just allocated everything we had over to molding and finishing. So now we can say, okay, we allocated all the cost to the departments, starting with the overhead. First we allocated overhead to all departments, then we allocated service departments to production departments. Okay, so now we're moving on to the next step. The next step, now that we have these costs, is to allocate to each product. Now I'm making snowboards and surfboards. We know that that's my business. Now I want to know, I know this is how much the departments are costing now, but how much of each department is my product using? Because now I have the snowboard and I have the surfboard, and I want to know, okay, how much is the snowboard using molding? How much is the snowboard using finishing? How much is the surfboard using molding versus finishing? I mean, that way I'll know how much the surfboards are costing versus the snowboards are costing. And the whole idea to begin with is, okay, I'm going to allocate the right cost to surfboards, the right cost to snowboards. That way management is going to know how much the product cost. What's the total revenue versus total cost? I want to know the profit so I could know, hey, surfboard is making money, snowboard is not making money. Depending on all of these departments, I want to know the true profit. So for that, I have to analyze. So I'm going to allocate based on labor hours first, regarding snowboard and surfboard, and then on machine hours as well. So looking at the molding department, I'm seeing here that the labor was split 50-50. So that's what driving the molding department. So I'm going to multiply the 30,425 by 50%. That goes to snowboard. I'm gonna allocate the other 50% to the surfboard. Now the finishing department is driven by machine hours. So I know the total cost is 35,575. Now I'm going to allocate a quarter, because the snowboard is only using a quarter of machine hours and finishing is driven by machine hours. So 35,000, a quarter of that is 8894, goes to snowboard. 75% of the 35,575 will go to the surfboard. It's using up 3/4 of the machine hours, and finishing is driven by machine hours. Now what I get is these allocations to the snowboards and to the surfboards. And look, that 66,000 still here, as that is the total cost. So if you look on top, we went from just having costs, some departments, design, marketing, molding, finishing. We had also indirect labor, indirect material that was not even allocated. Now we first allocated to each department. We went through each department, allocated first the overhead by department. Then we looked, okay, some of the departments are working for each other. So we had to look, how are the production departments being fed by the service departments? We allocated from service department to production department, maintained the 66,000, and then we allocated the total of what we came up with from production to actually each product. So in your homework, when you apply this model, when you apply this to your business, I want you guys to follow this cost, the 66,000, whatever that is in your business, update that, and follow it all the way through from the departments all the way down to 2 products.